after the show was taken off the air by ABC. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celestia Sherman. We'll also discuss the state of the Buffalo Bayou Trails with Crystal Sargent, a U.S. Department of State fellow from the Community Solutions Program, and Kirk Farris, the founder of Art Environment Architecture, Inc.
And I'm Frank Billingsley. Plus, we'll also talk with Dr. Fred Aguilar, who will field your questions on the latest weight loss medications.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is denouncing what he calls uncontrolled migration. In his speech today to the United Nations General Assembly in New York, Trump says such migration's ruining countries in Europe. Here's NPR's Michelle Kellerman.
President Trump accuses the United Nations of funding an assault on member states by supporting migrants.
Your countries are going to hell.
He spent much of his speech talking about his own crackdown on migration, and he personally thanked El Salvador, where he has sent hundreds of people to be jailed in a notorious prison. Trump also defended his military strikes on speedboats that he says were carrying drugs from Venezuela to the U.S. He says the U.S. will continue to, quote, blow them out of existence. World leaders were mostly silent as he railed against the UN system, though Trump got a few laughs, joking about the UN escalator and teleprompter not working. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the United Nations.
Jimmy Kimmel fans may or may not see the return of the veteran comics late-night show on ABC tonight, depending on who runs the ABC affiliates in their market. Nexstar is joining Sinclair in choosing to preempt the show, pending assurances the content meets their standards. Kimmel's show was yanked off the air a week ago over remarks he made in a monologue in which he appeared to accuse MAGA loyalists of trying to score political points against left-leaning ideology in the aftermath of conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination. It remains to be seen what, if anything, Kimmel says tonight about the dispute involving ABC, which is owned by Disney. But NPR's Mandalit Del Barco says many of the biggest names in entertainment have plenty to say about it.
Before the show was reinstated yesterday, nearly 500 entertainers, that included Pedro Pascal, Selena Gomez, and Olivia Rodrigo, had signed an open letter asking for Kimmel's return. Protesters around the country, including some conservatives, had been worried about what taking the show off the air meant for free speech in this country.
NPR's Mandalit Del Barco. The U.S. Supreme Court has issued an emergency order. It allows President Trump to fire the last remaining Democratic member of the Federal Trade Commission. NPR's Nina Totenberg reports.
By allowing the firing of Rebecca Slaughter from the Federal Trade Commission, the court seems all but certain to overturn a nearly century-old precedent that barred presidents from firing members of bipartisan regulatory agencies, except for bad conduct. Dissenting for the court's three liberals, Justice Elena Kagan noted that Congress enacted the bipartisan agency framework. She said the emergency docket should not be used, as it was here, to transfer government authority from Congress to the president and thus to reshape the nation's separation of powers. Nina Totenberg, NPR News, Washington.
The Nasdaq is down 73. The Dow is up 38 points. From Washington, this is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harrod. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez says some of his deputies were lucky earlier today while responding to a fake call for service in Atascocita. Gonzalez says they were ambushed by a man identified as Kenyon Coleman with an automatic rifle hiding out in a wooded area. Nobody was injured. Sheriff Gonzalez says that the suspect's weapon may have jammed. Coleman has been booked in the Harris County Jail charged with aggravated assault. Meanwhile, hundreds of people turned out on campus yesterday to honor University of Houston student Jade McKissick, who also went by the name of Sage. Authorities found her body in Brays Bayou last week after she went missing. Kern Austin helped organize the vigil.
If you know Sage, she literally did everything, and for her to do everything for us, why wouldn't I show up to do everything for her, in honor of who she is?
Houston police say they do not suspect foul play in her death. Houston's 18th congressional district has been vacant since the death of Congressman Sylvester Turner back in March. Our Andrew Schneider says that once a winner is chosen in the upcoming special election, the new representative may face an uphill primary battle to keep the seat beyond next year.
The 18th congressional district has been solidly Democratic for more than 50 years. That didn't change with this past summer's Republican-led congressional redistricting. What did change was that much of the current population of the 9th congressional district, represented by Democratic Congressman Al Green, has now been packed into the 18th, effective with next year's general election. Michael Adams teaches political science at Texas Southern University.
I think Al Green is in a somewhat strategic position, and he holds all of the cards.
Green has not openly said he would be a candidate in the 18th District's 2026 Democratic primary, but he has ruled out running again in the new 9th District, which has been redrawn as a Republican Opportunity District. I'm Andrew Schneider, News 88.7.
For an in-depth look at the 18th Congressional District race, tune into Andrew's feature later this afternoon on News 88.7 In Depth. Of course, for more news, you can head to our website. That's houstonpublicmedia.org. I'm Matt Harrop, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com. This is NPR.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Well,
Hello.
we are all here.
We are here. We are all here.
So none of us raptured.
No.
Oh, is that today?
Yes.
Tomorrow.
Today.
I'm not exactly sure when we're leaving, but I
Yeah.
walked in and Celeste was still in her clothes, so I knew she hadn't lifted out and her clothes were just laying. See, that's what I was going to do. I was going to lay out my clothes in my office and then not come to work today.
You may not remember
Put your shoes there.
December 21st, 2012, I think was going to be a big end of the world.
Yeah.
And so Kevin and I decided we better get married 12-12-12 before that because, you know,
You never know.
If it's coming, we wanted to get married and go out
And
together.
then remember Y2K? When
Yes.
all of the
Yeah. Oh.
internets and things were going to go out? And
I was
down?
not allowed to go out for New Year's Eve. I had to sit in my office until after midnight at Channel 2 to make sure that the weather computers all were safe, which everyone with any sense knew they were going to be. But there I was.
Well, the world didn't end, but this show is going on, and we have got big news coming up on the show today. We'll be talking about preserving portions of the Buffalo Bayou Trail. Before we get to the official headlines of the day, breaking news, and joining us on the phone right now is Orlando Sanchez. Orlando served for 6 years on Houston's City Council and was elected as treasurer for Harris County for 12 years. And now, as of this morning, just about an hour and 10 minutes ago, he's running for Harris County judge. Orlando, welcome to Hello Houston.
Good morning, Celeste, Frank, and Ernie.
Hello, Orlando.
Hi, welcome to Hello
Morning.
Houston.
So you're throwing your hat into the ring. Guts or glory?
Well, as we say in Texas, ain't my first rodeo.
No. No. So but why do you want this particular corral? I'd like to know.
You know, Frank, I have served in a nonpartisan position at the city of Houston. Actually, I was the first Hispanic immigrant ever elected citywide in Houston. And then I had the honor of serving 12 years overseeing the investments and the expenditures of the county as county treasurer. And when I was county treasurer, our books were balanced. We were reducing our debt. We had money at the end of every fiscal year. And as all of you know, today, Harris County is $275 million in debt and growing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think Anise Parker would make the same argument with her experience, and I think that's at least one of the contenders you're going to be facing from the Democratic Party, and you're going to, I guess, run as a Republican. How do you meet her head on?
Well, Anise and I were desk mates for 4 years as city council members. She has similar experience. She was the city controller while I was the county treasurer. Of course, Anise went on to be mayor. I lost the mayoral contest in 2001 very narrowly when I ran against Lee Brown. So our management philosophies are similar. Here's the issue. Harris County now is a plurality Hispanic community. We're the largest community in the United States with the largest number of immigrants. And I tell people all the time, what does Hidalgo, Ramirez, Gonzalez, Garcia, and Briones all have in common? They're all Hispanic, all elected countywide or in their respective precincts. So the county is shifting over to a more Hispanic participation in government. And so it'll be a very lively, contested debate for the position of county judge. I can tell you I have a lot of respect for Anise Parker. We've been friends for years before either one of us in public life. I knew her when she was in the private sector. She knew me when I got started in politics. So the citizens of the Harris County voting population are going to have to decide the race between Anise Parker and Orlando Sanchez.
You know, Orlando, as you said, given the fact that you just said and talking about this shift within Harris County, how are you going to basically move forward with one of the issues that you have, which is I will begin the elimination of mandatory DEI training and left-wing employment practices on day one. And that is from your website, basically saying you're going to end wasteful practices. How do you reconcile those two things, given that we are such a diverse area and county?
Well, Celeste, you know that I started the largest Hispanic political action committee in Texas. I've been responsible for electing dozens and dozens of young conservatives across the state of Texas. We won 2 national awards for our polling. And just on Tuesday in Austin, at the Texas Public Policy Foundation, we released the results of our 2025 poll. Hispanics are not aligned with a lot of the very left-leaning positions. In other words, open borders, defunding the police, too much consideration for ethnic groups. In other words, Hispanics are focused on the economy, access to health care, improving the life of their families, and they're not so much worried about these policies of DEI, which, by the way, are scraping a lot of money out of the county funds to fund these departments. The Hispanic community and all communities in Harris County want public safety, number one. I was at Crime Stoppers for their annual remembrance of murdered victims. We had 700 victims of murder in Harris County between 2024 and 2025. And so that's what we want to focus on. We have limited tax dollars, so we have to address infrastructure, flooding. We got to quit raiding the toll road authority, and we've got to expand our jail. We have expanded our courtrooms, which means more adjudications, more people going into the jail, but we have no room. So people want to focus on core issues, not DEI, not social engineering. That's not a priority for Harris County residents.
Orlando, I'm curious, the decision to make this run, how was the thought process for you? When did you come to the decision to do it? And what was it that pushed you toward it? Was it simply the fact that you looked at the surnames of these folks and you said, this is the time for a Hispanic to make that move? What were you thinking?
Well, it perhaps, I mean, every candidate looks at numbers, right? We have to figure out, is there a path to victory? What is your path to victory? But, Ernie, you know that ever since I've been in politics, I've had the support of the Hispanic community in Houston. When I ran for mayor of Houston in 2001, the Hispanic portion of the total vote was 7%. We doubled that to 14%. And I got 74% of the Latino vote against Mayor Lee Brown. In 2014, 2015, when I was county treasurer, Ed Emmett and I were the highest vote getters in Harris County. We beat the lieutenant governor, the governor, the candidates running for Senate. And so I have a history of attracting and encouraging crossover vote from Latinos that we know historically have voted with the Democrats.
But I guess a little broader, though, besides just simply the fact that you looked and it looked like you could win, what enticed you that this is the office for you, that you thought, you know what, these are the issues I need to address? Of course, the fiscal responsibility portion of it, but what else and why now take this choice?
Well, the fiscal responsibility is the most important part. For the last 15 years, I've been overseeing billions of dollars of public money and private sector money. I've been on the board of directors for a bank for 18 years. I was the investment chair and the chairman of the foundation for the University of Houston. We manage over $500 million for the benefit of the colleges and student scholarships. I'm on the board of the largest hospital corporation in America, HCA Hospital, which has many hospitals here in Houston. So the number one driver for me was fiscal responsibility. But beyond that, Ernie, if you drive the city of Houston and you see the massive number of homeless people, we have some important issues to address with mental health in our community. We need to give access to health care to those that are mentally challenged. The county jail is not the position for them. In other words, we can't have the county jail serving the mentally challenged in our community. The rating of the Harris County Toll Road Authority and paying salaries in excess of $450 million, that's more than the President of the United States makes, is unacceptable. So we need to rein in the out-of-control spending, scrub the budget, address public safety, expand our courts, expand our jail, expand access to health care, particularly for the mentally challenged, prepare and make sure that we have enough reserves to handle all the storms that may come our way, hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, you name it. We have to be prepared.
Let me just ask this then. In light of what you've just said and your knowledge of finance and balancing and stuff, what did you learn from your campaign when you ran for Houston City Controller against Chris Hollins, and what lessons from that will help you in this campaign?
Well, let me tell you, there were several candidates in the race, among them some conservative candidates, not the least of which was a sitting city council member from Kingwood. We eliminated him, and Chris and I went into a runoff. From a purely campaign perspective, Chris outraised me by 10 to 1. Chris had about $2.2 million to dump into his campaign, Ernie, and I had about $250,000, so I was severely overspent. But in spite of that, I received over 70,000 votes in the city of Houston. So that leads me to believe that I continue to have good name identification, not only in the city of Houston, but Harris County. And every candidate that runs for office looks for an advantage. And one of the advantages I have, of course, is not only having served honorably in all of my positions, but I have high name recognition.
Orlando, I've always admired how some mayors and county judges really get along and work together in the past, which is not something I've seen recently. So you as a Republican, John Whitmire as a Democrat, how are you going to work that relationship?
Extremely well. I've known John Whitmire ever since his early days in the Senate. In fact, he's my neighbor. Lives 5 blocks from me. I live in Rice Military. I won't, of course, disclose where the mayor lives for the obvious reason. I see the mayor at Memorial Park when we jog. We've sat together at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. I've worked with him in the legislature before. I've been to his office, presented him issues that were facing Harris County. John is interested in the well-being, and I say that not disrespectfully, but Mayor Whitmire has had the interest of Houston and Harris County for many years. He was a leader in the state legislature when it was time to build prisons. If all of you remember that in the 1980s, during the Tracy G. murder and the Pena and Earhart murders, when gangs were running out of control, the Southwest Cholos, it was John Whitmire who led the charge to expand the prison system in the state of Texas so that we wouldn't have to parole violent offenders that were coming to Houston. So I think John Whitmire and myself are aligned on the criminal justice issues. As you all know, I served 12 years as a member of the bail bond board of Harris County, when defendants were held accountable and actually showed up to court, because several people had skin in the game. That is, if they didn't show up to court, the bail bondsman lost the money and the family of the defendant lost the money. Today we have, in some courts, over a 90% no-show rate.
Orlando, I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more from you over the coming months. This race isn't going to totally be decided for quite a while yet, so it's going to be an interesting time. Good luck, and thank you for sharing with us so soon after you're announced.
Yeah.
It's great to be with the icons of Houston. Thank you.
Well, you're nice.
Well, then we won't keep you from them any longer.
We should mention that Marnie Langton, a Republican, and Letitia Plummer, a Democrat, also have their hat in the ring.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Thank you. That is Orlando Sanchez, who has just announced that he is running for Harris County Judge. Of course, that name is familiar to you. He served 6 years on Houston City Council before elected to Treasurer of Harris County for 12 years and is now running for Harris County Judge.
Now we're going to jump right into the top headlines of the day. Jimmy Kimmel Live returns to late night television tonight, nearly a week after the show was taken off the air. We have been covering the story of how the Federal Communications Commission chairman, Brendan Carr, threatened ABC to pull Kimmel after Kimmel's opening bit about Charlie Kirk's assassination. The comedian's remarks made fun of the president's reaction to Kirk's killing and accused MAGA of exploiting the situation for political gain. ABC's parent company, Disney, said it decided to let the show return after days of thoughtful conversations with Kimmel. However, Sinclair, one of the largest broadcast affiliate owners, says it will not air Kimmel's show in its ABC stations, which are in 30 markets. This will make the show unavailable for viewers in many parts of the U.S., primarily in the South and Midwest. Carr stated yesterday that his comments last week about pulling Kimmel off the air weren't meant as threats to ABC affiliates. Ana Gomez, the only Democrat on the FCC, celebrated Kimmel's return and thanked Americans for speaking out on what she said was an alarming attack on the First Amendment. Later on, Hello Houston, we'll be speaking with Ken Paulson, the director of the Free Speech Center, about the First Amendment, so you'll want to stick around for that. But for now, what do you think of Kimmel's return? Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870.
An update to the story, too. You mentioned Sinclair was not going to be airing. Now Nexstar says they also will not be carrying the show. But they did in their statement make reference to the fact that it is still available online and streaming for people who do want to see it, but they are going to push toward their commitment of local news coverage and serving their local communities and will not be airing him at this time either.
You know, this has a lot to it. This is a big bellwether. Mm-hmm. I think with Ted Cruz, as we talked about yesterday, coming out, Rand Paul, Mitch McConnell, all saying that the FCC had crossed a line, that free speech was in jeopardy, and this is not the path we wanted to go down, quote, slippery slope. I think there's that. And then the fact that we're watching television conglomerates now decide what they are going to let us watch based on their own conservative positions. Sinclair's very conservative. Nexstar's very conservative. And they've decided, not because they were insulted by what Jimmy Kimmel said in a social way, but in a political way. And so they are upset with Jimmy Kimmel. And so therefore, we're taking our ball and we're going home. And we're not going to show you. And I think this is a bellwether moment. I think people have got to vote with their clickers on this and say, if you're not showing what we are normally entitled to see, then we're not going to watch your station.
To give a little understanding of how the structure is in this world. So networks produce programming. They pay affiliate stations to air it. They only own so many of their own stations, which are referred to as O&Os or owned and operated. But the vast majority of stations, when you see an NBC, a CBS, an ABC station, those are independently owned stations or conglomerate-owned stations, not owned by the network. The network then has an agreement with them, and if you air their programming, they pay you to air it. It's the total opposite of PBS, where PBS also has a national program creation source and distribution center, and we buy the programming from them as opposed to a network TV where network TV pays you to air their programming. So that's a little difference in how programming comes to people. So Nexstar or Sinclair can decide whatever they want to air on their stations. They make these agreements, they decide. it's the people's choice then, like you said, Frank, to decide do they want to watch it or not. We had a station in my town growing up that was an affiliate of two different networks. I believe it was Fox and NBC.
Yeah.
And they would switch back and forth between what primetime programming they would air, depending on what the audience wanted to see. So it's not mandatory that they air what the network is feeding.
But what if, the only thing that saves politics is that there's equal opportunity of politicians. If you give one politician
the equal time rule.
Time rules, that helps. But what if a conservative station said, well, we're not going to air this more left-leaning program?
And they've done that.
And they've
many
done it
times
both ways.
throughout
And
history.
they've done it conservative, too. They've done
Yeah.
it both ways. But I think we're finally realizing, is this how it should work?
I think
we're the public.
I think the wrinkle in this particular story is the fact that the FCC, through the White House, put pressure out there, suggested pressure when a major merge was happening or merger is under work. And so they are trying to curry favor, some may say, with the administration so that their merger goes through. And we don't know, did the administration push again to these more conservative stations? You know what? Even though he's coming back, we don't necessarily want him.
And I think that's the point, right? Is that there's always been some type of industry standard for a network to be looking at their content or their entertainers. And there's been a little bit of, well, we didn't like that, so you need to send out an apology, or you need to putting pressure on their, entertainers, like Jimmy Kimmel, for example. Now, the difference, what's not okay, is that you had the government put pressure on the network. The network then puts pressure on the entertainer.
As Ernie pointed out, it seems like a quid pro quo. And that never goes
It has
well.
the appearance of it. We don't know the full story. We don't know what the decision was made between Disney and Kimmel, which I think is going to make people extremely curious to see what he says tonight. And we will investigate. We'll talk a lot more about that tomorrow on the show, but because we'll know what he said. But I want people to pay attention to the fact, if these two groups are not airing the show, everyone's going to be looking at what the ratings are. The ratings can only reflect where he's been able to air and people watching it. So what could have been a huge ratings boon, if these two groups aren't airing the show, those numbers will be down a little, but we need to incorporate that when we look at how successful this return was.
Mel on YouTube says, money talks is what I learned from all this. American and international customers of Disney and Hulu canceled their subscriptions, and then Disney brought Jimmy back. But again, that's a whole other facet of this.
Right. And I also got a text that says, I think now the consumer has the choice more than ever about what they consume through all of the streaming capabilities, because Jimmy Kimmel Live will be available on certain streaming apps and, places.
I must admit, I can't wait to hear his opening.
I know. I never
tonight.
watched Jimmy Kimmel Live. I'm going to be watching it tonight.
I'm a Jimmy Fallon guy because I worked for NBC for so long.
Ernie does the best.
I'm not going to do it
Jimmy
on air.
Fallon.
We've got a show to do today, so we're going to leave that right there. It is National Great American Pot Pie Day, so if you can hold off dinner long enough, you can have a pot pie while you watch Jimmy Kimmel tonight.
I love pot pie.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk with Crystal Sargent, a U.S. Department of State Fellow from the Community Solutions Program, and Kirk Farris, the founder of Art and Environment Architecture, Inc., about the state of the Buffalo Bayou Trails. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
With federal support gone, Houston Public Media needs a stronger foundation for the future. The Houston Public Media Resiliency Fund is our response to ensure this service remains strong, stable, and community-powered. Your gift today helps us stay on the air tomorrow and the day after that. Give now to the Resiliency Fund at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Did you know your gift to Houston Public Media could go twice or even 3 times as far through your employer's matching gift program? Many companies will match the charitable donations of their employees, and some even match gifts from retirees. That means your support for trusted news and programs could have double the impact for our community. Find out if your company participates at houstonpublicmedia.org/match.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8, Frontline presents Hurricane Helene's deadly warning. See how the storm became an ominous warning about America's lack of preparedness. Tonight at 9 on TV8 or stream on the PBS app.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, opening the season with the return of Gershwin's Porgy and Bess, with a score that blends jazz, spirituals, blues, and classical music into songs like Summertime. Season subscriptions and more at hgo.org.
Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
Support comes from Live Nation, presenting John Batiste, with special guest Andra Day and Diana Silvers, Saturday, October 4th at Smart Financial Center. Tickets and more information available at livenation.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Today, we're turning our attention to a growing concern right in the heart of Houston, the deteriorating state of a portion of the Buffalo Bayou Trails. From public safety concerns to environmental degradation, this vital green corridor is facing serious challenges just as the city prepares for an influx of visitors ahead of the 2026 World Cup. Joining us today is someone who's already rolled up her sleeves and jumped into action. Crystal Sargent, a U.S. Department of State fellow from the Community Solutions Program. Originally from the Bahamas, Crystal brings a wealth of experience in environmental stewardship and public communication. She's currently hosted by Art and Environmental Architecture, Inc., and over the next 3 months, she'll be helping lead efforts to revitalize James View Park and the Frosttown Historic Site on Buffalo Bayou. Crystal recently helped organize a cleanup and mowing effort alongside the trails, and she's here with us to talk about what she's seeing on the ground and what Houston can do to restore and protect this critical piece of urban landscape. Crystal, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Kirk Farris, the founder of Art and Environmental Architecture, Inc., to discuss the state of the Buffalo Bayou Trails. Kirk, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thanks.
And if you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or send us a text, 713-440-8870.
Before we get into the whole conversation, when we talk about this area, we think of a lot of space. What exact area are we talking about when we talk about the bayou right now?
I believe Kirk would be the best to
Kirk,
answer that question.
Tell me, what exact section?
Pretty much we're discussing the section between the McKee Street Bridge, James View Park, and the Frosttown Historic and Archaeological Site on the south side. And the trail connections, I guess, on both sides are in poor conditions between that location and other locations to the east. I have not carefully studied the condition of these trails as they get to Jensen Street or beyond Jensen, but I do know there's maintenance issues that are very serious and they needed to be addressed. I actually only know about my more narrow interest. So I was out there working with Ed and Crystal and other team members to clean up the section of the trail that it directly impacts Frosttown and James Butte Park.
So how did, first of all, define a little better the problems. When you say they need maintenance, are they muddy, torn up, roots? What's the issue?
All of the above.
All of the above.
So, and there's a big homeless population as well, living in a section under the area. And so we went out there last Sunday and we did a community cleanup that we posted on our Facebook page. We always encourage people to follow us at the James Butte Park Facebook page to see when we're having another event, because there's still more work to do. So we were out there last Sunday, not this Sunday past, but and we cleared the space up. Kirk was on the mower.
1952 Ford tractor. And I found someone that likes to run it, so I'm very happy.
Yes, and we also cleared up a lot of pollution in the area, a lot of plastics, debris, and Also did a little bit of landscaping. So that area, it's not in a very good condition. It was growing up pretty badly. And then it's also like a muddy area under there as well where, it's not really been maintained.
Right. And so, Crystal, that brings me obviously to my next question, which is there's been a string of recent deaths that have raised safety concerns and, fueled some speculation. When you guys are out there cleaning up that area, why would you think that is such an area we're seeing so many safety concerns around?
Okay, so once again, I am, more or less new to the whole section. Obviously, when you have certain areas, right, and they're not maintained and they look a certain way, you attract a certain type of negative behavior and characters who feel like they could just come into the area and do as they please. But this is another reason why it's important to keep the area maintained, because if it looks like a space where you wouldn't want to do those type of activities, then you could kind of, get those individuals to feel like, maybe not over here. You want to keep the area as clean as possible,
So
right?
how do you maintain
to deter
it?
those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Once you clean
Y'all are
it
trying
up,
to clean it up.
Yeah, you clean it up. Now what? How do you maintain it?
The Buffalo Bayou Partnership has claimed that they are the people that are in charge of the care of all these trails, and yet somehow they've been very busy with other projects that are very well funded and have simply just let the ball go. It's just a matter of the fact that they haven't sent their regular crews out there to take care of things. And a better maintained trail would be a safer trail. And what we're concerned with really is the connectivity now between the major development on the old Brown and Root site, which has a clever little name, I forgot the name of it, and all the people that will be coming into the neighborhood wanting to get into downtown and use these trails on the south and the north side of the bayou. So they were in deplorable condition basically due to lack of care. And I don't know whose fault it is. I just want it corrected. Now, they're going to be closing some of these trails to do reconstruction of some of these processes. That's fine, but as long as these trails are open for the people to use, care needs to be made of this. And also, I think that the partnership should have been more proactive in taking care of the vagrant and homeless occupations under the freeway bridges all throughout a long stretch of time. There used to be a major camp over right next to the Frosttown Park, or the James Butte Park, and it was simply vacated one day, fenced off, but it was moved to the north side of the bayou. Now that same group, or a different group, is on the north side of the bayou. The city is working feverishly to solve some of these problems. A lot of people are concerned about finding beds and residence for these people, and so it's a process. It's not my job, but I would love to have it solved.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any meetings with powers that be?
No, I don't do that anymore. I just basically work on the subjects that are right in front of me that I have control over.
Let me put a subject right in front of both of you then and tell me what your thoughts are on this. Earlier on, I remember when Buffalo Bayou did a lot of redevelopment in the area, and when they were redesigning, rebuilding, they built it with the idea of how it would weather over time, no pun intended. So when you're cleaning up these areas, are you thinking about, left alone, what needs to be done so that they preserve themselves to some degree, as opposed to invasive plants, things that could erode it, lack of structural support put in place, if you follow where I'm going
Yes,
with this?
yes.
Yeah.
So we're actually planning, like I said, there's more work to be done. So we're actually planning on doing a follow-up cleanup for anyone who wants to attend who's listening. So we'll announce that on the page. That'll be in October. But we are looking at the different species. We're working with Rotary and other organizations and individuals who are, they have greater insight on plants and sustainable species.
That's the word I was looking for. Sustainability. Thank you.
Yeah, sustainable species. And so we are looking into how best we can curate the area so that the maintenance wouldn't be so what do you call it, like expensive or cumbersome, right? Because we're only able, like we're trying to help, but we're only able to go in every once in a while to do cleanups. You know, we're relying on people to volunteer in their free time.
So do you have to get permission from the city? How do you guys just go in and start cleaning up these areas?
Well, who would stop you?
So y'all are doing this completely on your own?
Oh, yes. And some of this property out here that is impacted belongs to Art and Environmental Architecture, Inc. I was in the process of acquiring land for future park development for the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you're starting to take the ball and run with it, but you're going to need at least a little help to keep this project going.
Well, the Buffalo Bayou Partnership simply needs to take the cue and go ahead and restart what they had done previously. They did a good job. As a matter of fact, to give credit to these people, they've hired a lot of talent that has done a really good job in plant diversity around their bike trails in that other park, the park that's heavily funded.
Yeah,
the
and so
Allen
we are.
Parkway Park.
Sorry, but we are working with other partners and community-based groups like Friends of Columbia TAP, who are assisting us with this and actually trying to start up these conversations and meetings with people who are able to assist us with the maintenance or who can give us an ear, who have the resources to chip in and make sure that these things are done. So that's we're trying to give that a little push right now, and we're working with other organizations who can assist.
Well, I know they're listening.
Yeah.
So tell me your Facebook page again and how they can get in touch with you.
Yes, because we do have, Nicole wants to know, what organization are you all from?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the James Butte Park page. You can just follow us on that. Let me get the official name so you can give me a moment. But in the meantime, Kirk could tell you more about the importance of the park historically, because it is very historically significant, and I think that helps to captures people's attention when they think about the importance of it.
I've always hoped that it captured people's attention. I came to this project by painting the McKee Street Bridge in 1985, and to make this project an art project that had success and teeth, I felt the area around it had to be altered, changed, and improved. So I began a long and painful process of creating a public green space there. So for 12 years, we had a green space. For another 12 years, we had a lease situation where the county had come in and helped out, mow grass, etc. And then we got into some land purchases. And so now there's an official James Butte Park. But underneath it all is the Frosttown Historical and Archaeological Site, which was settled in 1836 by the Frost family. And then in 1838, 1839, they subdivided it and began to create Houston's first neighborhood outside of the grid. So we're dealing with Republic of Texas soil, which is a huge residue of important archaeological information yet to be found. The first dig we did out there found 450,000 items, some of which are of great interest and some are of less interest. But nonetheless, what I'm saying is this is a rich historical place with nothing to see except what's under the ground that's yet been seen.
All right.
When you look at this, too, with the redevelopment coming along further to the east of it, do you expect that development to flow into this park in that area?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the reasons why I think Ed Pettit and Columbia Tap people are so motivated to get things cleaned up and bettered. I saw a woman with a friend of hers pushing a baby carriage out there on that trail when it was being maintained. And I thought, oh, there it is. The connection has begun between that neighborhood and downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, and
that was some time ago. Excuse me.
Yes, sorry, no problem. But just to follow up on the Facebook page, the official page is James Butte Park and Frosttown Historic Site, and there's a photo of Kirk painting the bridge in a pink and
so that's how you'll know you're at the right page.
Yes, yes.
Thank y'all.
Crystal Sargent is a U.S. Department of State Fellow from the Community Solutions Program, and Kirk Farris is the founder of Art and Environmental Architecture, Inc. Crystal and Kirk, thank you both for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you so much for having us.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll discuss weight loss medicines. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
Federal funding for public media has been cut. In response, we're creating Houston Public Media's Resiliency Fund. Donations made toward the fund will directly counter the loss of the $2.2 million in federal funds that were cut annually and strengthen our station's foundation to provide our services into the future. Contributing to this fund is easy and quick and makes all the difference to our station. Help build the Resiliency Fund now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
I'm Bill Curtis from Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. It's the NPR News Quiz, where we make fun of the news and chat with funny people like Hassan Minhaj, too.
Your parents were not up for you being a comic.
Yeah, they weren't really into it, but that's because they loved me.
Right, exactly. They wanted what's good for you.
Make your parents proud by staying up to date on the news with Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me.
Saturdays and Sundays at 10 a.m. on News 88.7.
On Fresh Air, you'll hear revelations from well-known actors, like Zach Galifianakis on the story behind his last name.
It's actually shortened, Terry. My real last name is Galifianakisberg. That's an exclusive for your show.
Fresh Air, bringing you some of the biggest names in American culture and some of the most difficult to pronounce. Join us.
Fresh Air, weekdays at 8 p.m. on News 88.7. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Serta Pro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at certaapro.com.
Support comes from Laporte CPAs and Business Advisors, an independent accounting and business advisory firm serving clients for more than 75 years, with 190 employees across offices in Houston, New Orleans, and other locations. More information at laporte.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org to get your comment in on today's topics. Here's Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
All right, raise your hand if you're on Wegovy or Ozempic or thought about it.
I'm not actually on anything, but right? I do. You see it all around
all
us.
around. And now they're talking about pills rather than shots.
Yes.
A lot to unpack on that. Are they really working? And are they working? You know, we were talking about how some medicines for thing A
off-label
turned out to be perfect for thing B. And so that seems to have happened. And more than just losing weight, these medicines seem to be doing a lot more for people, even fighting Alzheimer's and dementia. I know that is crazy. I know. So why have I brought my friend Fred Aguilar, who's a plastic surgeon, on? Because I have questions about how this is affecting plastic surgery. Is it helping it or hurting it? And he knows all about these weight loss drugs, as he will tell you. Welcome to Hello Houston, Fred.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. So how did you, I mean, I've known you as a plastic surgeon.
Right.
Not mine, but a lot of my friends for a long time. How did you sort of really start turning your attention toward these weight loss drugs?
Well, it happened slowly over the last 5 years because it started to hit the national consciousness, if you would say that. And we started seeing people on it that could not lose weight any other way. And at first there was almost a tide against doing it because it had this stigma. And as you said earlier, we have found that people who have been on it for a long period of time have achieved other benefits from this as well. And
so when you say on it, which ones does it matter?
I was going to say, because Dr. Aguilar, so many times when we're talking about weight loss drugs, we immediately just think of Ozempic, because that was the first one kind of on the scene from a national perspective.
That is correct. So I guess to organize people's thinking a little bit, these are called GLPs, which mean glucagon-like peptides, and they're based on hormones in the body. And believe it or not, based on the way that a manufacturer produces these, they fall into categories such as a semaglutide, where Ozempic and Wegovy fall. They fall into the category of a liraglutide, which is where Victoza and Sandexka appear, and a dulaglutide, which is Trulicity. So if you can say those are our family, but the different chemical makeup that provides the manufacturers make these with fall into a different category.
So let me then ask, so are they all basically the same thing, just different manufacturers, different way they're achieving
different
the same
chemical
goal?
arrangements. They are
so
basically the same
Ozempic,
thing.
Wegovy, Manjaro, all the same.
Well, Manjaro is a separate issue.
Oh, okay. Let's go to Manjaro.
That's a
then.
really
Where
good
does that
question.
one-
Now, the GLP-1s are all working at the cellular level to help reduce the sugar load in your body. But the Manjaro has something that includes a GIP, okay? And a GIP is a glucose-dependent insulin, which also helps the kidneys lower your sugar. Manjaro is the only one that has both properties. That's why it's been the most effective at lowering A1C in most people by almost
define
2 to
A1C,
3%.
glucose.
Hemoglobin A1C is a measure that we follow diabetics with to say how high has your sugar been in the last 3 months. And so Manjaro has also been the one that's increased weight loss as well because it has both components.
Okay, you say the phrase reduce sugar load.
Correct.
That's what these drugs do. Isn't reducing sugar load not eating sugar?
Yes and no, because believe it or not, if you're diabetic, even the smallest amount of sugar that's hidden will raise your sugar because you cannot properly produce enough insulin to get that sugar out of your bloodstream.
So what does reduce sugar load mean when it comes to these
It just means that when
drugs?
that sugar crosses the food line in your intestine and gets into your bloodstream, the Wegovy, the Manjaros help the pancreas secrete the insulin necessary to reduce the amount of sugar and the time that it stays high in your blood system.
So, Dr. Aguilar, I'm not somebody who would necessarily take any of these things, but lately on my Instagram account, I've been getting a lot of these marketing reels about powders now that you can take. Is that like taking a GLP-1? Because that's what they're marketing it as.
It is not yet available.
Okay.
Now, we know that there is only one that actually is a pill right now. It's called Rybelsus, and that's the only one that's available. Now, there have been notifications out there that maybe Manjaro may come out with one, maybe others will, but that's not going to happen. Now, Jardiance does have a pill, which is different, and so that's available as a pill form right now, which that one is a GIP and helps the kidneys.
It's so funny. I know these names from commercials on TV, and I didn't know they fell into these groups. I didn't know what they did.
Yeah.
But,
Dr. Aguilar, from your medical perspective and standpoint, do you feel that GLP-1s, since they've entered the game of weight loss and, translating it into plastic surgery, has changed the game for America in regards to weight loss?
Absolutely it has, because we have had people that have not been able to lose weight any other way. And going back to what Frank said earlier, again, there have been other health benefits. It has actually been found to help women with polycystic ovary disease. We have found that it improves mental acuity. It has been found technically to start reducing the onset a little of dementia, and that's pretty important. It helps muscle metabolism. It is a very impressive cross drug that has affected other parts of the body as well.
And if you lose weight, then the pressure on your knees, your back, just your overall health of being a thinner person.
And I think what the listeners need to realize is that if we weigh 200 pounds, let's say, our fat is not just in our stomach. It surrounds the heart. It surrounds the lungs. It surrounds the intestines. So if you lose 15 pounds or 20 pounds, you've improved your heart pumping capabilities. You've improved your lungs and their ability to open up and take oxygen. You've reduced the amount of fat that you're carrying in your belly because the fat goes away everywhere.
Right, and are you also talking about the visceral fat?
Yes, I am. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
When we say abdominal fat, it's that big fat pad in the middle of your stomach.
That's so hard to lose.
Oh, I know. It's the worst. So I have a question about the pills versus the shots. Are the pills, do they go through the liver or do they mostly go through the kidney?
They mostly go through the kidney.
So they're really pretty safe because a lot of things go through the liver you don't want.
Correct. And the pill one that's around Jardiance affects the kidney to help reduce the glucose that's in your bloodstream as well.
We talk of all of this like the magic shot, the magic pills. The fact of the matter is I understand it. When you take these, however you take it, it just reduces your appetite? Is that the trick to it, that you won't eat because you're not hungry?
That's an excellent lead-in because the main way that it works is it stops the stomach from emptying as fast as it was before you started taking it. Okay. So if you take it on a Monday, and you eat your dinner normally Monday night, when you wake up Tuesday, you're going to feel bloated because your stomach has not emptied the food that you ate that night. And so that's why we put people on anti-nausea medicine when you start. We warn people to start at a small dose because we don't know how it's going to affect you until you actually get on it.
What about heartburns and stuff
That's
like
why
that?
I personally recommend that a patient take an Nexium a day once they start on it, and Metamucil to improve the way that the digestive system handles food.
So good idea or bad idea? Take half on Monday, half on Thursday, as opposed to a full load on Monday.
Bad idea. What we do is we say if you take it by a syringe, and usually the syringes are really small, like 0.1, which is a tenth of a cc. We start people at 0.1 and we see how they do. We say, how do you feel the next day? How do you feel the next 2 to 3 days? Most people feel just a bit queasy, but not everyone. But there are some people who react vehemently to that 0.1, and we know, okay, you can't take it. It's not for you. And there are those people, so I'm letting everybody know. But if you take 0.1 and you do well, the next week you can jump up to 0.2. And if you do well on that, and by the way, if you did 0.1 and you did well, you'd lose 3 pounds to 4 pounds to 5 pounds the first week.
Wow.
So you go next week, you go, okay, you can creep it up to 0.2. And if they do well, by the end of the second week, they've lost another 3 to 5 pounds.
Because you're not eating.
Because your drive to eat is lowered.
But just jumping on that really quickly, but that sounds unhealthy to me. If the reason you're losing weight is because basically you are starving yourself, what should you be eating if your body doesn't want food? That's not a good place to be, is it?
That's a perfect question, because what really happens is now you're not starving because you still want to eat. The question is, if you're served an 8-ounce piece of steak.
I like that 8-pound steak.
I know, me too, a tomahawk. But if you're served a 4-ounce, let's say 6-ounce steak, you're only going to feel hungry after you've eaten the first. You're going to eat 2 ounces of it and you'll feel hungry. And so you can still, and that's actually a good amount to have eaten.
So you're actually eating the right proportions
so you're eating the right
for your
food,
body.
but now your drive is less. Instead of having a huge bowl of ice cream, you may have a bite of an ice cream at the dessert, and you're satiated.
Oh, some people I know have lost the desire to drink as well, alcohol.
Another good point. We have found that it's reduced the drive for alcohol, and it's reduced the need for people to drink. And we have seen that, and smoking, by the way.
Wow.
We are speaking with Houston area plastic surgeon Dr. Fred Aguilar about weight loss medications. If you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or text 713-440-8870. And we do have a call. Steve from Cyprus. Steve, welcome to Hello Houston. What is your question for Dr. Aguilar?
Good morning. My wife tracks this sort of stuff closer than I do, and she has stated to me that she believes once you are on these medications, you cannot get back off of them. Is that correct?
It is, in a way, incorrect. And what we usually do, when everybody gets on it, we should have a goal weight. The doctor should say, okay, you weigh 200 pounds now. We want to get you to 175. When you hit 175, you start reducing the amount you're taking. If you quit cold turkey, you may find yourself overeating again within the next 2 weeks. So we like to reduce that amount down to the 0.1 that they first started with, and we call that maintenance. I personally like to see them on maintenance for another 4 to 5 weeks, and if they're doing okay there, they can get off of it. So the answer is they do not have to stay on it for the rest of their life.
Does your body just learn, I don't need that much food?
That is correct. In some ways, it's retrained the central nervous system to say, I don't have the same drive for food.
You said not wanting to drink as much. What about sex drive? I've heard that people have complained of that.
I have not heard a single complaint about that, but if you have, I would not surprise me.
I would imagine, though, you'd have the opposite effect. You're
Right,
feeling good about yourself.
I'm looking. And again,
I'm feeling good.
That speaks exactly to what people, their self-esteem goes up when they now start finding. I've had people say, I found new clothes in my closet that I didn't even have. And they feel sexier. They feel more entitled in terms of living the full life.
We have one more call here. Judy from Southwest Houston. Hi, Judy. What's your question for Dr. Aguilar?
Hey, Dr. Aguilar. My body has always been really weird about how it reacts to any medication. So way back ages ago, Dexedrine for ADHD did what you're describing that all these drugs do. I just had zero desire to eat for months.
Right.
But now I am my doctor recommended a plant-based one. I don't ask me what it is, but it's still the GLP whatever. And somehow, even though I don't have a big appetite anyway and I'm huge, I'm more hungry when I take it.
Wow.
Is that a weird hormonal thing, or
It might
what do you
be,
recommend?
I don't know which one you're taking, but it might be that that's just not as effective in the way that these other ones are, because these other ones are working at hormonal levels that have been well established in the way that your intestines absorb food and sugar.
Dr. Fred Aguilar is a Houston area plastic surgeon. Fred, thank you so much for joining us
It's
today.
been my pleasure.
on
Thank you
Hello
all
Houston.
for having me.
Coming up, we're going to continue diving into today's top stories. Stay with us for the second hour of Hello Houston.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Support comes from Houston Grand Opera, presenting for the first time in company history Puccini's trio of one-act operas. Il Tridico, featuring one of opera's most famous songs, O mio babbino caro. Tickets available at hgo.org.
86 degrees at the University of Houston. I'm Tiffany Taylor, looking at a 50% chance of thunderstorms through this afternoon. Lows tonight in the upper 70s. This is your NPR station, KUHF Houston, News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, President Trump stated that acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, causes autism and suggested pregnant women should avoid the drug. We'll discuss with Baylor College of Medicine's Dr. Peter Hotez. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also discuss the First Amendment and free speech with Ken Paulson, the director of the Free Speech Center based in Middle Tennessee State University.
And I'm Ernie Manous. Plus, we'll learn more about the Mission of Yahweh, a faith-based shelter located in the Houston area.
And we want to hear from you. Give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. You can also watch us on YouTube by going to houstonpublicmedia.org and clicking the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump's speech at the United Nations today took aim at migration, climate action, recognition of a Palestinian state, and the relevance of the UN itself. Trump aired wide-ranging grievances on the opening day of the 80th UN General Assembly in New York. NPR's Frank Ordonez reports Trump is also holding one-on-one meetings with other world leaders.
He's got a bunch of meetings scheduled for the rest of the day this afternoon with leaders of the Middle East about Gaza, but also with European leaders to discuss the war in Ukraine. Trump said in his speech that he was going to speak with European Union about European countries continuing to purchase Russian oil.
NPR's Frank Ordonez. Russian President Vladimir Putin has shown no signs of ordering a halt in its war with its Ukrainian neighbor. Meanwhile, Trump has also expressed support for Brazil's besieged former president Jair Bolsonaro, who has been convicted of plotting a coup following his re-election loss. And wading further into Latin American politics, Trump also took the unusual step today of endorsing Libertarian President Javier Milei for a re-election in Argentina. At the same time, senior diplomats are in New York City for the General Assembly. The Secret Service says it shut down a network of devices that could have been used to spy or disrupt communications. More from NPR's Jenna McLaughlin.
High-profile meetings of world leaders are extremely attractive targets for espionage. So it's no surprise the U.S. Secret Service uncovered a network of more than 300 servers and 100,000 SIM cards in New York City in the days leading up to the 80th UN General Assembly. According to the Secret Service, those devices could have enabled bad actors to shut down communication networks in the area or to spy on the session. Matt McCool is the special agent in charge of the Washington field office. He made brief remarks in a video message.
This announcement is designed to safeguard critical infrastructure and responsibly provide the public what we can at this time.
He said the investigation already uncovered a potential foreign actor involved. Jenna McLaughlin, NPR News.
President Trump canceled a White House meeting with top Democratic leaders initially planned for Thursday. NPR's Deirdre Walsh reports efforts The prospects of a government shutdown are rising.
Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said they plan to push for measures to lower health care costs as part of a government funding deal. But in a post on his social media platform, the president called the demands from Democrats unserious and ridiculous and said no meeting could be productive. The House approved an extension of current funding levels until November 21st, but the measure failed to advance in the Senate. Without any negotiations, a potential shutdown could start October 1st. Jeffries says the president chickened out. The president left the door open to a future meeting if Democrats shift their demands. Deirdre Walsh, NPR News.
At the last check on Wall Street, the Nasdaq was down more than 100 points. The Dow was up slightly. This is NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Alexandra Hart. Hundreds of University of Houston students gathered Monday afternoon to mourn the loss of 20-year-old woman who was found dead in the Brays Bayou last week. Jade McKissick, who also went by Sage, was reported missing on September 11th and was pulled from the water 4 days later. Kayla Walker was among those honoring her memory.
I really hate that this had to happen to her. If anybody did, it shouldn't have been her. Nobody deserves to go out like that. May she rest in peace. She was a wonderful community member and a wonderful friend.
Houston police have said they do not suspect foul play in her death, and the medical examiner is still conducting an autopsy. Authorities say 3 suspects have been identified in connection with the shooting of a youth baseball coach in Katy on Sunday who was hit by a stray bullet during a game. News 88.7's Kyle McClinigan has an update.
The Waller County Sheriff's Office announced Monday that the 3 people are suspected of discharging weapons Sunday morning in a pasture located near the youth baseball field. According to the Sheriff's Office, the 3 suspects were allegedly taking part in recreational shooting in the direction of the baseball field when a bullet struck a coach in the upper arm. Video of the shooting, shared on social media, shows players and coaches running off the field as shots can be heard in the background. The man who was shot was transported to a Houston hospital via life flight before later being released. A Sheriff's Office spokesperson said the suspected shooters were not at the Katy Police Department gun range, which is located near the baseball field, when the shots were fired. I'm Kyle McClinigan, News 88.7.
The man accused of shooting and killing a boy over a neighborhood ding-dong ditch prank has had his bond total raised. Gonzalo Leon Jr. is now facing a $1.3 million bond. He's accused of gunning down 11-year-old Julian Guzman over the prank. Leon has been indicted on 2 additional felony charges, injury to a child and aggravated assault. He's been held in the Harris County Jail since early September. It's 89 degrees right now on the University of Houston campus, 50% chance of showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. I'm Alexandra Hart, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, home of the Name Your Price tool, so drivers can see coverage options at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Live from Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now, Hello Houston with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
Here we are again, busy first hour, but don't let that fool you. We have a busy second hour coming up. A lot of great things we're going to talk about. We're going to be talking about free speech with Ken Paulson from the Free Speech Center in just a little bit. You can watch us on YouTube. You can call us, as you just heard, 713-440-8870 to join. If I'm running through this really quickly, it's because we want to get quickly with Frank and the weather real fast.
I just want to say a scattered shower, but a cold front tomorrow night. If you got plans for Friday, Saturday, you picked winners.
Okay, great. And you know where we picked a winner? We picked Celeste as a winner to give us the news of the day.
Thanks, Ernie. President Trump stated yesterday that acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, is causing autism and warned pregnant women to avoid the drug. He says the Food and Drug Administration will update drug labeling to include warnings for pregnant women about using the painkiller. The president also suggested that a cancer drug, which appears to help get a form of vitamin B into the brain, might help relieve some symptoms of autism. The announcements were made despite a lack of clear scientific evidence to support the decisions. There are only anecdotal reports that the cancer drug could help people with autism. What do you think? Do you believe the president's warning on Tylenol? Now is the time to give us a call at 713-440-8870.
And to help us dig a little deeper into this topic, joining us now is Dr. Peter Hotez, Dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine, an advocate for global health equity. He's also the author of the book, Vaccine Did Not Cause Rachel's Autism, My Journey as a Vaccine Scientist, Pediatrician, and Autism Dad. Dr. Hotez, thank you for joining us today. We can't hear you. Is your mic on? Gonna check that.
It should be.
Oh, there you go. Now you're with us.
It should be on.
There you are. You're with us now. Sorry
Okay.
about that. Thank you for joining us today. I'm assuming this is a very busy day for you yesterday and today.
Yeah, I thought with the wind down of COVID over time that would be the end of my media and TV and radio career, but Mr. Kennedy seems determined to call me out of retirement when it comes up to
So let's just start with the
zingers all the time.
Let's start right there with the headline. Everyone is up in arms and concerned that Tylenol is causing autism in pregnant women. Your thoughts?
So if I could, let me break it down a little bit, because a little bit of background will go a long way. So, we've identified more than 100 genes that are involved in autism, and they were first published in a paper in a very prestigious journal called Cell in 2020 led by a group at the Broad Institute at Harvard, MIT, who were collaborators with our Genome Center at Baylor College of Medicine. And almost all of them are genes involved in early fetal brain development, especially around the prefrontal cortex. And the genes are activated in early fetal brain development, so there are mutations or other defects with those genes. They can translate into the appearance of autism, and now we call it autism spectrum disorder, because it's not a single condition; it's at least 100 different conditions. So I think that's another really important point. Now, that doesn't mean that there's no environmental effects, but what they're environmental effects interacting with autism genes. And that's why, over the years, I've been pushing back against vaccines, because by the time, a child's born, the autism processes are well underway, and vaccines are not going to have any effects. And at least yesterday, the White House didn't talk about vaccines necessarily causing autism, which I guess is a positive sign. But there are at least a half a dozen known chemical exposures early on in pregnancy that will influence autism genes to increase the likelihood your child will be born with autism. So to start off right off the bat, even without any of those environmental exposures, your child could still have autism. And that probably accounts for most of the autism.
I want to pause you
disorder.
just here for 1 second so you can clarify something you said. You said you've been pushing back on vaccines. You mean the idea that vaccines cause autism, correct?
That's right. Vaccines do not cause autism because autism is all occurring during early fetal brain development. Now, autism clearly has a very strong genetic basis operating through those 100 autism genes. But there are some environmental exposures that could be associated with interactions of autism genes to increase the likelihood of autism. And as I've talked to Mr. Kennedy over the years there's about half a dozen chemical exposures that have been identified like that. The best described one from my reading of the scientific literature is a medication called Depakote. Depakote is an anti-seizure drug. The other name for it is valproic acid or valproate. And so if you don't know that you're pregnant, and because if you are pregnant, the obstetrician will tell you to not get off your Depakote. If you're on it, it can interact with autism genes and greatly increase the likelihood of that your child will be born with either autism or something closely resembling autism. So that's clearly something that you want to avoid. And there's at least 5 or 6 other chemical exposures like that. Tylenol has not been on that list. And, there was a really strong, really impressive undertaking, a paper that was published in 2024, and it was led by a group at a place called the Karolinska Institute in Sweden, which is really one of the top biomedical research institutions, really anywhere in the world, but certainly the top biomedical research institution in Sweden, clearly showing no link between Tylenol and autism from that 2 million person study. So you would think, okay, maybe that closes the door on this. But then an article came out over the summer in what's called a systematic review. And what this group did, and one of the authors is at Harvard Chan School of Public Health, is they tried to go through the literature and look at all of the different studies, maybe at least a dozen studies. I forget the number of studies they actually looked at. I think there's a couple of dozen studies. And studies of varying degrees of strength in terms of numbers and things like that. And what they found is that some of the studies do show an association, but other studies don't, and that's not unusual for a systematic review. So what's the take-home message from that? And the take-home message from that is, well, maybe there's something there, and it's certainly worth looking into. And if you had to rank a list of chemical exposures that you worry about, based on what I've seen so far, I would not put Tylenol near the top compared to the other ones, which is a much stronger association. But it's certainly worth looking into. So had the White House held a press conference and say, look, we really do want to understand autism better, that we do think there's a rise in autism diagnosis. We think most of that is due to shifting diagnostic criteria, because now we've gone from calling it autism is a spectrum disorder. We're much more inclusive. We're getting better at diagnosing autism in girls and women. We used to say it was 10-1 boys to girls. Now it's 3-1. Maybe it's closer to parity, so the numbers will go up more. But we do think there could be some environmental exposures as well. These are the ones that are really strong. We're also going to look at Tylenol and really convene all of the experts in neuroscience and environmental health to convene and help us figure that out. Had they done that, that would have been a very reasonable thing to do. But what do they do instead? Instead, they don't talk about autism genes. They don't talk about any of the other known chemical exposures that do have an association, and do this kind of this laser targeting on acetaminophen, Tylenol, as though it's a fait accompli. And it makes no sense. It makes no sense scientifically, and it also rings hollow, because just the whole way Bobby Kennedy, the secretary, frames autism is in these very simplistic terms, or the way the president talks about it, they say they're going to find the cause of autism or the cure for autism. But think about it, if it's 100 different genes, right? We know there's 100 different types of autism. To use an analogy with some mixed success in that, looking at, cancer, nobody would ever say, now we're going to reveal the cause of cancer or the cure for cancer. Why? Because there's hundreds of different types of cancers and hundreds of different types of oncogenes, each with their own environmental triggers. So it's sort of baby talk, or this kind of childlike notion of thinking about a very complicated condition
to help,
like autism. So that's kind of the big 30,000-foot overview.
To help people put this in context too, when you look at something like this, if a pregnant woman is taking Tylenol, and so then they have an autistic child, you say, oh, look at, she took Tylenol, therefore that's what caused the autism. But she may be taking the Tylenol because there's some pain or something that's happening that Tylenol's appropriate for, but it's really whatever's causing that pain or issue may be related to the autism, if I'm explaining
or most likely
enough.
It's the autism genes, and,
right.
and it may be completely unrelated. Or what's kind of interesting, there is some literature on looking at congenital viruses. that can cause, that may be linked to autism, and maybe the fever was a sign of a congenital virus. So all of that should be on the table of looking at. But to, again, kind of completely toss out all the cards and say, now we're only focusing on Tylenol, not only does it not make sense scientifically, there's actually scientific evidence to refute it. And so I think it's really important if you're pregnant and you're having pain and you're concerned, the most important thing you do is you have that discussion with your OB, with your obstetrician.
Which, that's exactly what I was going to ask. Dr. Hotez, as somebody who has been pregnant, oftentimes we are already on high alert about what we should take and what we can't take. I mean, I know friends who, we won't touch sushi. And I say I'm not pregnant right now, but I've been there in that mind, in that space. How alert should pregnant women be, or somebody that potentially is trying to get pregnant? Is this we should pause taking it? Is it, I'm going to call my doctor? And, where should we be looking at this from a female perspective?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you've probably asked, as you always do, Celeste, you asked the most important question. And I'm going to punt a little bit, because for the simple reason that I'm not an obstetrician, and I don't want to overreach here. And so and I'm sure this is something the obstetricians are all thinking about right now. But this is the kind of discussion that you're going to have with your obstetrician, and the obstetrician's also going to have to think about the evidence and realize that you don't want to have fevers while you're pregnant. You don't want to be in pain. We don't have a lot of other options, because obstetricians don't like using ibuprofen or aspirin in pregnancy because of other potential medical effects on the fetus. So it's not like there are a lot of choices out there. So that's kind of a long way of saying that's going to have to be a discussion with you and your obstetrician.
And there's even word that if you just muscle through it, as Trump suggested, that's bad for the fetus. To withstand the pain and not do something for it is bad for but again, I'm not an OB-GYN either.
Yeah, I mean, it's telling moms, who, are the most important human beings on our planet, that they're just going to have to muscle through it. First of all, they muscle through life.
I was just going to say, we've been told that often before. That wouldn't be the first time.
And just to tell them, suck it up, and
And
there are no words.
There is concern. You brought this up, Celeste, earlier too, about fever. If a woman is pregnant and has a high fever, that can cause, where Tylenol may be able to help reduce the fever, that you're putting the fetus at a different sort of risk.
In fact, I was on last night on Anderson Cooper, and I was with Sanjay Gupta, who I love, and that's exactly what he said, and I think he's right. So.
Dr. Hotez, do you think that this will now put the medical, OBGYNs and obstetricians in a vulnerable position? Because if they have, mothers or pregnant women who are calling them and saying, what do you think? And they say, no, go ahead, you should be okay, from knowing your medical history. Do you think that now puts them in a vulnerable position from a legal perspective?
Yeah, it may, and this is something that the Society of Obstetricians are going to have to weigh in, and there's a couple of them, and they're outstanding organizations. So one has the lovely acronym ACOG, which stands for, I have to get this right, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecology. So they issue guidelines. There's also another, and I'm sure there are others as well, but the other major important one is the Maternal Fetal Medicine Society. So they will likely, in response to this, either maybe they already have issue a statement or clinical guidelines or algorithms about how to manage that, and perhaps that will afford some kind of legal protection for OBs as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fascinating story. What would you recommend at this point in time for parents, for people to take away from what we've heard, from all the coverage of this, from what the White House has said, from what the health organizations are saying now? Where should they stand right now, and how do you see them moving forward?
I would say the way you think about that White House press conference is it taught us nothing new, and it was one of the more fact-free 15-minute White House press conferences that we've heard in a long time. And so there are not a lot of takeaways from it. They made a big splashy point of saying we're going to find the cause, earlier, I think it was even before the summer, that we're going to, quote, find the cause of autism, find the cure for autism, this kind of nonsense. I mean, again, it's baby talk. It was never something that they ever should have offered in the first place. I think that's the point. And sure enough, there's not a lot of there.
I'm going to steal that line, fact-free, from you. We have a call on the line. Chris from Montrose. Chris, what is your comment or question for Dr. Hotez?
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for taking my call. Doctor, I have a question for you. So I think the big concern that we all share is that with whomever it is that's in charge at the national government giving this information that's arguably questionable, that professionals like yourself call out as questionable, it starts to undermine the legitimacy of those messages. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are as an insider. If that's going to continue into the future, is that necessarily bad, good, right? At what point does the private medical profession take over that role and become the go-to resource? And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but like if we didn't look to the federal government for answers to what's the best medical advice, would that be bad or would that be fine? Because it seems to me like getting our answers for questions like Celeste is posing from persons like yourself is much more logical than getting it from the White House. And I'll hang up and listen to your answer.
Yeah, no, and Chris, we both live in Montrose, so maybe I'll see you in the neighborhood sometime. But feel free to stop and talk. But I think you said what your question in common is very profound, and here's why. Because I'm a professor at a medical school, right? I am not employed by the United States government, and the reason that's relevant is I don't have the same level of accountability in that sense, other than my own, pride in my profession and my professional responsibilities. But I'm not employed by the U.S. government, so it's a big difference, right? When something's coming from the Centers for Disease Control or the FDA, one of the government agencies, the NIH, and it's very disconcerting to have misinformation now coming out of Washington D.C. and there haven't been a lot of precedents for it. I mean, sure. I mean, during the pandemic, you might have heard me sometimes saying, well, the CDC said this, but, it's not quite how I would frame it. That's very different from what we're talking about right now. And so there isn't a lot of precedents to go on there. One of the things that started to happen, which is also not good, but it seems to be, taking shape, is that several coalitions of states are banding together to create their own parallel set of recommendations, starting with vaccines. So this has happened now in the western states, so the state of Oregon, California, Washington State. I think maybe Hawaii has joined them now, have gotten together to create this coalition for alternative vaccination recommendations. I understand New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts may do the same. It's I guess it's being born out of necessity because the states feel now they're on their own and they can't rely on the federal government. This is not good for anybody. It's and we've never been in a situation like this. And it was never a big issue in the first Trump administration. I mean, Secretary Azar, the Health and Human Services Secretary, he was great. He actually invited me to speak at the World Health Organization at his event that he had to explain why vaccines don't cause autism. It's this new stuff that I think everyone is kind of struggling with trying to figure out.
Dr. Hotez, I want to grab one more call quickly, and then we will say goodbye. Allison from Jersey Village. What's on your mind, Allison?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
I would encourage all pregnant people, no matter your political background, to not take any medical advice from Donald Trump or JFK Jr., and to seek medical advice from medical professionals such as Dr. Hotez. Thank you.
Allison, thank you very much. We have Dr. Hotez, not Dr. Hotez, with us. But as we have always said throughout running all the shows here, you should always, no matter what advice you hear from even our doctors on air, talk to your own medical professional. They know you, they know the case.
The good news, Ernie, is, we're really blessed here in Houston. We've got this extraordinary Texas Medical Center and the hospital systems, and we have some of the finest obstetricians in the country, and I've gotten to know many of them, and so that there is some good news to this as well.
Yeah. Dr. Hotez, thank you very much. Pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're kind of busy with this announcement, and a lot of folks are reaching for you, so thank you for always making yourself available to us right here in your own community. Yeah.
Thank you, Ernie. Thank you all. You're all the best.
Thank you. Dr. Peter Hotez is the Dean of the National School of Tropical Medicine at Baylor College of Medicine, and he is also the author of the book, Vaccines Did Not Cause Rachel's Autism, My Journey as a Vaccine Scientist, Pediatrician, and Autism Dad.
Coming up on Hello Houston, Ken Paulson, the director of the Free Speech Center based at Middle Tennessee State University, joins us to discuss the First Amendment and free speech. This is News 88.7. Stay with us.
I'm Jeremy Hobson.
Hello, I'm Josh Adams, General Manager of Houston Public Media. This station just lost $2.2 million in federal support annually. To keep our station strong, we've launched the Resiliency Fund, powered by community members just like you. Your support will help bridge the funding gap and ensure these programs remain free and accessible to everyone. If public media and this station matter to you, now is the time to act. Support the Resiliency Fund today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
There are certain rules that everyone just knows.
Common knowledge is necessary for coordination, for people being on the same page, acting together in a way that benefits everyone. You can't do it if you're the only one doing it.
The unspoken understandings that hold our society together. That's next time on Think.
Tonight at 10 on News 88.7.
I'm Jesse Thorne. You want some real, insightful conversations about where art comes from? Well, Bullseye has you covered, as long as you don't mind a little bit of ridiculousness.
Y'all was really judging me though.
They sniffed it out. They sniffed out that I was weird.
I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna sit, just like in the movies.
Listen, learn, laugh. Bullseye from Maximum Fun and NPR.
Bullseye, Thursdays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV8, Frontline presents Hurricane Helene's deadly warning. See how the storm became an ominous warning about America's lack of preparedness. Tonight at 9 on TV8 or stream on the PBS app.
Support comes from Gen Pro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects the freedom of speech, religion, and the press. But what exactly does freedom of speech mean? Where is the line when one's words become dangerous and incite violence? Who exactly gets to decide when someone's expression of opinion has gone too far? Joining us now to tell us more is Ken Paulson, the director of the Free Speech Center based at Middle Tennessee State University. Ken is also the former editor-in-chief of USA Today and spent most of his career in journalism and looking at First Amendment law. Ken is now the director at the Free Speech Center, a nonprofit, nonpartisan public policy center. Ken, welcome to Hello Houston. Oh, Ken, it looks like you're muted. And if you would like to join the conversation, you can give us a call or send us a text at 713-440-8870. Ken, I believe we can hear you now.
Very good. I'm delighted to join you.
Yes.
Apparently, you're only booking guests who are having really busy weeks.
Yes. Well, we gave you the freedom to speak by turning up your
Yes.
mic, so now you're with us.
That's the thing. Can we continue to say freedom of speech is protected by the First Amendment? And right off the bat, I wonder, who is the Constitution protecting freedom of speech for and from whom?
Well, it's interesting. We love saying that we live in the land of the free, and we all have this assumption that whatever we say or do, that's protected. We're in the U.S. But in fact, the First Amendment of the Constitution says Congress shall make no law. It means government shall make no rule or regulation that limits your speech. Unfortunately, for a lot of people in recent weeks, it doesn't say your boss can make no rule. The First Amendment actually doesn't apply in the private workplace. So that's been a source of a lot of consternation and controversy because people have posted things that got them in trouble with their bosses. And the remarkable thing, and most Americans don't know this, about 82% of Americans have no free speech protection at work. If you don't believe that, try marching on your boss's office. It won't last long. And
Right.
And the only time the First Amendment comes into play in terms of our political commentary outside of direct government interference is if we work for government. And if you work for government, basically courts will say, well, wait a second. Yeah, you're employed by government. They're your boss, but it's also the government shutting you up. So they do a test, and the test basically says, is your right to free speech in that job, does that outweigh the potentially dramatic impact on the workplace? So that's called the Pickering test, and it's time honored. But this last 2 weeks, people have really discovered what the law is about. And that's why, a principal or a very prominent teacher and others are suddenly without jobs because the disruption at the workplace has become so profound.
Talk to me a little bit about how the concept of free speech intersects with the idea of censorship and how
Right.
these things are the same and how they're different.
Well, again, because we live in a nation in which the government can't interfere with what we say. First of all, I want to put in a plug for a bit of history here. When you think about it, in 1791, when we adopted the Bill of Rights in this country, we became the first nation in the history of the world to say to its population, you can say what you want, you can pray to the God of your choice, you can write whatever you want. You can also, by the way, complain in the form of petition and assembly and try to get things changed. When we said that first generation of Americans said that, it created a nation unlike any other. What that meant was that we were going to share all our ideas, we're going to speak confidently, we were going to be creative, and we were going to value creativity. Patents float from that. What we now know as copyrighted protected material, inventions flowed from that. A nation built on ideas, a free flow of ideas, is going to be a great nation. And it's not a coincidence that the strongest, most dynamic, most creative nation in the history of the world is also the most free. So when you talk about censorship, you're saying we're cutting that flow off. We're going to put a dam here. And these kinds of ideas we no longer want to hear. That's what censorship does. It cuts America off at the knees. The very thing that made us great, it endeavors to stop.
Does it amaze you at how quickly this is happening?
Yeah, it's been the most astonishing 2 weeks I've seen in free expression and journalism. And I'm talking in the long run. I mean, you have to go back to John Adams to see something comparable to this. And part of it is our nation has got this velocity about it. Communications. It's you can post something, and within 3 hours you've lost your job because 20,000 people have complained about you on social media. Mm-hmm. It's startling. In one respect, the founding fathers would think, how cool is this? We want everybody to have free speech. And now look how it's exploded. But it's also exploded in the negative sense, in that there's a lot of penalizing of free speech in this country.
So we've touched on free speech and the difference between censorship. Now, what about hate speech? And what is the definition of that? And how does that work in all of this?
Sure. Hate speech is actually what the First Amendment was intended to protect.
You heard the Department of Justice make a point about there's free speech and there's hate speech. Well, no, absolutely wrong. Free speech is hate speech, and always has been. And here's why. I mentioned John Adams. There was a Alien and Sedition Act in the very birth of our country that he used to put people in jail. He put editors in jail and writers in jail because he didn't like the way they talked about the second president of the United States. He hated what they had to say, and he regarded it as hateful. So we had to make sure the First Amendment was intact to protect us from government leaders who wanted to shut us up because of our criticisms. Everybody in power, I'll give you an example. Think about the Civil Rights Movement. People who lived in Alabama in 1961 did not think of themselves as bigots, and they certainly all weren't. But those who were bigots didn't recognize it. They were standing up for tradition and history, or whatever they told themselves. And they would have described Martin Luther King Jr. as a hate monger. He came down and called them names, challenged their destiny, challenged their history, mocked Confederate generals in their view. And that was hate speech. And they would have shut up Martin Luther King Jr. for marching in their towns and saying these hateful things. Hate speech is what you need to protect. No need to protect popular speech. If it's popular, no one tries to shut it down. It's the hate speech. It's the aggressive speech. It's a speech that speaks truth to power that they seek to shut down. And in truth, in more than 2 centuries of American history, it has worked amazingly well. And we need to keep that in mind.
What about political speech? Is there such a term? I don't think I'm making that up. It's not necessarily hate speech. It's not necessarily happy speech, but it is speech with a definite end in sight.
Absolutely. That's a terrific question. Yes, there are degrees of speech, free speech in this country. And when the First Amendment was established, free speech was established, the primary purpose of it was to talk about the people in charge and call them out. I mean, that's why we have a free press. The idea was they needed some check on people in power. And so over the years, the Supreme Court has rendered dozens of rulings that remind us that the number one most important form of speech in America is that which we began with, political speech. It's a category, legal category, and it basically is about holding government accountable. So that's, it's interesting in the wake of the Jimmy Kimmel controversy, that was classic political speech. He was criticizing a major political party and the President of the United States for what they said in the wake of this terrible assassination. And then at the other end, the lowest end of free speech, but still with some First Amendment protection, would be topless dancing, and which is regarded as an art form in some places, and that is protected. And then advertising is, again, commercial speech where they're trying to sell you something. That is nowhere near as essential as political speech. And, the irony is that the most controversial speech today that people are trying to shut down all have to do with the public sphere and how we can be a better nation.
We are watching this unfold in real time pretty much at what's happening, especially in the late night realm. And I'm curious, at the end of the day, is it big business? Is it the economy that's going to save free speech?
Economy saving free speech. My hope actually is that the American people will save free speech. I mean, you look at the Jimmy Kimmel situation, the backlash against ABC was enormous on multiple fronts. And now Jimmy Kimmel will be back on the air tonight. We don't know, will it be the same Jimmy Kimmel? Will he apologize? Has he agreed in any way to temper his speech? We don't know yet whether there's a victory for free speech, but I do feel like we're kind of at a tipping point that when the President of the United States says 2 down, 2 to go about hosts who criticize him, I think Americans go, well, wait a second, what's happening here? And so using economic pressure through boycotts, that's very effective.
Well,
in the end, these are corporations and the bottom line matters to them.
But even some of our Republican congressmen, Senator Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Mitch McConnell, they also came out as Republicans and said, wait a minute, this is a slippery slope. Do you think that maybe created a bellwether for other Republicans to have the courage to stand by the First Amendment up against an administration that wants to kibosh it?
Yeah, there's no question. Ted Cruz's statement was enormously helpful, encouraged others to make the same statement. I will tell you, we're a nonpartisan senator. I have a very clear bias in favor of the Constitution, and so I will applaud any politician who stands up for free speech. But I will tell you, I'm puzzled because you mentioned Republicans. The Republicans were leaders in American political thought over the last 10 years in calling out what they described as cancel culture. Over and over again, they took on Facebook and said, you can't shut people out just because of what they're saying. That's un-American. And now the pendulum has swung, and I really don't understand why. If cancel culture was bad in 2019 or 2022, why would it be acceptable to try to shut people up now? Because there's been a shift in power. We have to, as a nation, have to figure out what's it going to be, America? Do we believe in free speech or not?
Well, if you collapse the criticism, then you can take over as an authoritarian, can't you?
That is a trademark of every single dictator in world history. You take out the thought leaders, you attack the academies, the colleges, the universities, the scientists, the journalists, and the critical thinkers, and your path has become easier. Is that happening now? I wouldn't presume to say so, but it's a very uncomfortable time in American history.
Ken, you mentioned cancel culture and you talk about the importance of our Constitution. How does cancel culture play into our Constitution?
Well,
or
cancel
does it?
Culture, well, it can. It's certainly, our government is prohibited from punishing us. And because of that, we actually have an atmosphere where we can live up to the promise of the First Amendment, the promise of free speech. So when we talk free speech, it's not a legally obtained right except protection against the government. But what it is kind of a national vibe. And we have always taken great pride in the marketplace of ideas. I have an idea. You have an idea. Let's debate and discuss it. And out of that, in theory, and this is the theory of the first generation of Americans, the best ideas will rise to the top. The best solutions will rise to the top. Now, when we talk about cancel culture, we're also talking about an environment in which people love to hear themselves speak. We're polarized, and everybody's certain they know. And we listen to only each other who share our views. So I have the right to speak freely, but it doesn't mean anything unless I also feel an obligation to listen. Mm-hmm. If there's not an exchange of ideas, then it's just the bumper sticker battle. And so cancel culture intimidates people. There have always been penalties. I mean, I will tell you, initially I objected to the phrase cancel culture as though it were something new. No, this happened to Eartha Kitt in 1967 when she criticized the Vietnam War. It happened to the Dixie Chicks in the early of this century. That has always been there, but never at this philosophy, and it never had a cute name before like cancel culture.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about, we often talk about with the First Amendment saying you have the right to express your opinions, but there's also responsibility that comes with it, correct? And how do you help people understand that part of it?
We're on a little rocky ground now is that we're seeing third grade teachers being punished for posting things on Facebook. That's gotten kind of intense. And I think people have to think long and hard about whether that comment by a teacher is going to disrupt that third grade. Are those students going to put down their blocks and say, Miss Anderson, let's talk about your Facebook posts? It's gotten crazy. But having said that, we always have to take accountability for our speech. If you open your mouth and share your views, the point is to share it with others. Some will disagree. And although the level of punishment has grown, the bottom line is you can get in trouble with your speech by lying about somebody. Libel and slander laws are consistent with the First Amendment because the First Amendment protects our right to speak in betterment of a stronger nation. But lies are not protected by the First Amendment in that context. If you damage somebody's reputation, there are always going to be consequences. Well, actually, not even consequences. There things will happen because of your speech. Sometimes very good. People will get up and applaud. They will think you're the smartest person in the room. And other times people will boo and criticize you. But that's the nature of a free nation. There are no guarantees. And that's why it takes a little courage to speak your mind, particularly now. But now is when we need it, and we need a lot more listening as well. Thoughts on putting the Ten Commandments on schoolroom walls?
That's something we're dealing with here in Texas now.
Yeah. Obviously, there's very strong opinions in your state about the need to do that. It's unfortunate, not that people feel the need to have uplifting statements in their schools, but the very fact that along with that early experiment, you can say whatever you want, you can worship the God of your choice, and government's not going to have any role in selecting what the right religion is. Government is not going to have any role in deciding telling you how to worship. Now, they reached this conclusion when there was almost no diversity in faith, relatively little diversity in faith, and yet they still felt the need to guarantee it. And we are so much better served if everyone feels comfortable in the public sphere, in public schools, and is able to worship as they choose to. Take religion off the table, keep politics out of schools, except for thoughtful reflections on what's going on in the world. That's where we need to be as a nation. Again, it's one of those building blocks. I talked about earlier how our nation is the greatest in the world because of those commitments. And we can't lose sight of that. There's this constant battle in this country about the right of coaches to say prayers with their football teams, and entire communities, appropriate for Texas, believe it's absolutely right. They will tell you that this teacher has a right a coach has a right to express their faith because we're a free country. But what about that halfback who happens not to share the coach's faith? They deserve some protection and some space as well. And they actually have the right not to pray as others do. So we have lost sight of the other guy in almost every aspect of American society. And we look out for ourselves and don't do a very good job of understanding what other people are up against.
Oh, we got to leave it there. But
Ken,
I'll just say pray for us, Ken.
Yeah. I was going to say, Ken, thank you. And you going to be watching Jimmy Kimmel tonight?
Absolutely. I'm thinking maybe Super Bowl numbers tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
We will see. Thank you. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Ken Paulson is the director at the Free Speech Center, a nonprofit, nonpartisan public policy center. Again, Ken, thank you for joining us on Hello Houston. Coming up, we'll discuss the Mission of Yahweh, local organization helping Houstonians. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
With federal funding cuts, Houston Public Media has lost $2.2 million annually. In response, we have launched the Resiliency Fund, an urgent initiative to protect the programs and services you rely on. That includes PBS Kids, that provides free educational programming to children and families across Greater Houston. Your support of the Resiliency Fund helps keep this vital service accessible to our community. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Hi, I'm Manoush Zamarodi, and our world is changing so fast. On the TED Radio Hour, we invite innovators, researchers, and activists to unpack those changes with us.
Just about all companies are becoming technology companies or technology-enabled companies.
Listen to the TED Radio Hour from NPR every week for conversations that will deepen your understanding of our changing world.
The TED Radio Hour, Tuesdays at 9 p.m. on News 88.7.
Plastic production worldwide is expected to triple by 2060. That creates problems that are very big and very, very small. Microplastics have now been found in our food, air, water, even in our blood, bones, and organs. So what do these microplastics mean for our health, and where do we go from here? The macro concerns over microplastics, next time on 1A.
Houston Public Media is a service of the University of Houston and is supported with your gifts to the Houston Public Media Foundation. More information available online at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Support comes from Near Northwest Management District, located just off 290 and the 610 Loop, with a mixture of modern and mid-century homes and businesses. More information at nnmd.org, at the intersection of innovation.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
The Mission of Yahweh is a faith-based shelter located in the Houston area that empowers and enriches the lives of homeless women and children. Founded in 1961, the Mission of Yahweh has, in addition to those shelters, provided several programs and outreach services aimed at helping communities in need. And this Friday, September 26, they'll hold their annual Leaders and Legends Gala, which Ernie and I have the honor of emceeing. We are not leaders or legends, but we are good MCs.
Yes. We can handle that
Absolutely. Joining us to tell us more about the mission is Helen Gay, daughter of the Mission of Yahweh founder, Sister Helen Gay. Your mom really got this thing going. Helen, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I read all about her, and I don't want to put the punchline out there. How many of these kids that she helped raise did she end up adopting?
She adopted 24 of us.
24 of you.
Yes.
Why did she do that?
I think the Lord told her to.
And
she just did it. But I always tell people, I think it was truly a passion of hers to give back to women and children. Mm-hmm. I'm number 11 out of the 24, right there stuck in the middle, right? And so with that being said, and just recalling some of the memories of different women and children coming to the Mission of Yahweh, it was just a heart thing. It was a love thing.
So she just opened up and said, if you need help, I'm here.
Come.
Isn't that lovely?
Perfectly said. I always tell people, and I hate to say it this way, and no pun intended and no offense to anyone, if a monkey showed up at the door and knocked on that door and said, Sister Gay, I have a baby for you, she's going to open up that door.
Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit about the program right here in Houston, what's happening today within it.
So that's a great question. So our program is kind of threefold. It's three-dimensional. So not only do we provide the component of residential services, being a home away from home, providing them with a good neighbor program where the women are instantly embraced into our community. We provide them with their own living space. We also provide them the spiritual component. Mm-hmm. It's either to re-strengthen their relationship with Jesus Christ or either introduce, you never know where they are in that walk. Mm-hmm. And then there's a vocational aspect of it. We look at their gifts, their talents, and then we pour into them. So if it's a need for a GED, we have on-site GED program. If it's a need for parenting skills or finance management, we have those on-site programs. But we also cater to them in an emergency aspect. It could be up to 90 days, or they may need our care and our love for a little longer, which is up to 24 months, which is 2 years.
And when you say, women and children, when a woman comes to y'all, typically what type of situation is she in that she would need y'all's help?
Wow. I can kind of think about the last women that have showed up at their door. Hope is gone. Family is gone. Financial resources are depleted. And we are their last hope. Mm-hmm. So it's either I lost my job, I depleted my savings, or even I relocated and I wanted a fresh start. And resources were limited.
Not to put too fine a number on it, but since 1961, how many have you helped out there in the Houston? I mean, it must be tens of thousands. You wouldn't even know.
Who's counting?
Yeah, I get it. That's why I say it's hard to come up with a number.
Yeah.
So the Legends and Leaders and Legends Gala that Ernie and I are emceeing on Friday, you're honoring women that have given back, women that are supporting you.
Absolutely. Women that are supporting us with their gifts, their talents, their time. Because as everyone knows, and if they don't know, they're going to find out today, we do not operate on any federal funds. No state, no city, no locals. It's directly from the hearts of other churches, partners, individual donors.
Mm-hmm.
in order for us to operate. And not only the women and children, we do community outreach as well.
I looked at the online. The dormitories you have are pretty accommodating. I mean, you have places for people that need them.
Absolutely. So our goal is to serve more than 35 women and children, just depending on how the family dynamic shows up at our door. And I always describe to people, if you can imagine walking into a small efficiency apartment with no kitchen space or living room space, but immediately into the bedroom space and a walk-in closet and a restroom, that is what they then on that first day describe as their new home.
And you're hoping to build more of those dorms?
Absolutely. We're going to take it all the way to Guest.
Well, unfortunately, there is still so much need for it. That's the sad part of the story, but the good part of the story is that you're out there trying to help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Glenda Haynes is the executive director of the Mission of Yahweh. Helen Gay is the daughter of the Mission of Yahweh founder, Sister Helen Gay. Thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to the end of our show.
And I do want to remind people, if they are interested in knowing more about what Frank and I are doing, you can find it online at the Mission of Yahweh's website. So look that up and you can see what keeps us busy when we're not on the radio with all of you.
That's right. And we did receive a YouTube question about if we're going to have our interviews separated out. You can find all of our interviews from today's show and from the past at our YouTube channel. But again, that brings us to the end of our show. We want to thank you for watching and listening to Hello Houston. We'll be back tomorrow with more conversations. This is News 88.7.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altide, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at houstonpublicmedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
Houston Public Media, in partnership with Texas Southern University,